Social Security checks could be slashed by 23% in just a few years. And I'm not talking about some distant future that doesn't affect you. I'm talking about everyone currently receiving benefits right now. If you rely on Social Security income, this is the most important update you'll hear this year. Before we dive in, if you're not subscribed to this channel, hit that subscribe button right now. We break down Social Security news and updates that directly impact your benefits, and you don't want to miss a single video. Subscribe now so you stay informed and protected. Let's get into exactly what's happening and what it means for your monthly check. Here's the reality that every Social Security recipient needs to understand. According to the Social Security Trustees Report from 2024, we are approximately 83 checks away from a major crisis. That countdown started in February 2026. What happens when those 83 checks run out? The Social Security Trust Fund will be completely empty. Gone. $0 remaining. And here's what most people don't understand. There is no grandfathering in. There is no protection for current beneficiaries. When that trust fund runs dry, everyone's check gets cut. It doesn't matter if you've been receiving benefits for 20 years or 20 days. The cut applies to all recipients equally. We're talking about a 23% reduction in your monthly Social Security payment. If you currently receive $2,000 per month, you'd be looking at losing $460 every single month. That's $5,520 less per year. For many retirees, that's the difference between making ends meet and financial disaster. Let me explain how the trust fund actually works, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Right now, if you're receiving Social Security benefits, approximately 10% of your check comes directly from the trust fund. The other 90% comes from current FICA taxes being paid by workers today. Think of it like a savings account. Every month, Social Security pays out more than it takes in. The difference comes from the trust fund. And just like your personal savings account, if you keep withdrawing more than you deposit, eventually that account hits zero. Here are the actual numbers from the trustees report. In 2024, approximately $1.2 trillion came into Social Security from FICA taxes, interest on the trust fund, and taxation of benefits. But $1.3 trillion was paid out to beneficiaries. That's a $100 billion shortfall in just 1 year. Where did that $100 billion come from? The trust fund. Currently, the trust fund holds about $2.5 trillion. That sounds like a lot of money, but when you're draining it by over $100 billion per year, and that drain is accelerating as more baby boomers retire, the math becomes very clear. The fund will be depleted by January 2033. Next year, the trust fund will be covering 11 to 12% of benefits instead of 10%. The year after, even more. By the time we hit that 83rd check, the trust fund will be covering 23% of all benefit payments, and then it's gone. Now, I need to address something that's been circulating for decades. You've probably heard claims that the Social Security money was stolen, that politicians raided the trust fund, that the money was given away to various groups. This is completely false. The trust fund was not stolen. It's still there. It's currently in your check, covering that 10% gap between income and outflow. The money wasn't given to any foreign country. It wasn't secretly redistributed. What actually happened is simple demographics and mathematics. When Social Security was designed, there were far more workers paying in compared to retirees collecting benefits. That ratio has shifted dramatically. People are living longer. Birth rates have declined. The baby boomer generation, the largest generation in American history, is now collecting benefits. The system was designed for different demographic realities. Those realities have changed. That's the actual problem. For 40 years, politicians and pundits have distracted us with stolen money narratives. Meanwhile, the actual structural problem has gone completely unaddressed. Every year we waste debating conspiracy theories is another year closer to that 23% cut. There's another talking point that needs to be addressed. Some politicians claim that eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse will solve the Social Security funding crisis. Here's the truth. It won't even come close. Yes, fraud exists in Social Security. I'm not denying that. Social Security employees discover and shut down fraud cases regularly. Overpayments happen. People sometimes collect benefits they're not entitled to receive. But here's what the numbers actually show. If every single instance of fraud, waste, and abuse were eliminated tomorrow, if we achieved a 100% fraud-free system, your check would still be cut by approximately 22% when the trust fund runs out. The fraud represents less than 1% of total benefits paid. We're facing a 23% funding gap. Fraud elimination might cover 1% of that gap. That leaves 22% still missing. Yes, fraud should be addressed. Of course it should. But anyone telling you that fraud elimination will save Social Security is either misinformed or intentionally misleading you. The math simply doesn't work. So what would actually fix Social Security? There's one solution that would solve the funding crisis, and it's been known for decades. It's called eliminating or raising the FICA cap. Here's how FICA taxes currently work. In 2025, everyone pays 6.2% of their income into Social Security, but only on the first $184,500 of earnings. Any income above that amount is completely exempt from Social Security taxes. What does this mean in practice? If you earn $50,000 per year, you pay 6.2% of your entire income into Social Security. Your effective Social Security tax rate is 6.2%. If you earn $5 million per year, you pay 6.2% only on the first $184,500. That works out to an effective Social Security tax rate of less than 1%. The person making $50,000 pays a higher percentage of their income into Social Security than the person making $5 million. This is the fundamental structural issue. As more wealth has concentrated at the top of the income scale, more and more income has moved above that FICA cap. That income doesn't contribute to Social Security. Meanwhile, the workers below the cap continue paying their full share, but there aren't enough of them to cover the growing beneficiary population. Eliminating the FICA cap would bring significantly more revenue into Social Security. Studies have shown this single change could solve the funding crisis without cutting anyone's benefits or raising the retirement age. But this solution requires people earning over $185,500 to pay the same percentage as everyone else. And those same high earners have significant political influence. The Social Security trustees have been warning about this problem for 40 years. Every single year they release a report showing the projected insolvency date. Every single year that date gets closer. What have politicians actually accomplished in those 40 years? The last major reform was the Greenspan Commission in the early 1980s under President Reagan. That commission raised the full retirement age from 65 to 67 for people born in 1960 and later. They also implemented taxation of Social Security benefits, which currently brings in about $54 billion per year. Since then, there have been committees, there have been proposals, there have been campaign promises, there has been endless discussion. But in terms of actual legislation passed to shore up Social Security's long-term funding, nothing. Zero. Not a single substantive reform in over 40 years. The current administration has no concrete plan to address the funding shortfall. The previous administration had no concrete plan either. We've heard talk about fraud elimination, which we've already established won't work. We've heard talk about privatization, moving toward a system similar to Australia's. Privatization would essentially hand trillions of dollars over to Wall Street financial institutions. Those institutions have wanted access to Social Security funds since 1935, when the system was created. They would earn commissions on that money, regardless of whether your investments gained or lost value. Remember the 2008 housing crisis? Regular Americans bore the consequences while financial institutions were bailed out. Privatizing Social Security could create similar dynamics with your retirement security on the line. The strategy appears to be kicking the can down the road until the crisis becomes unavoidable. Then politicians can throw up their hands and say there's no choice but to cut benefits. If we wait until the trust fund is actually empty, the only options will be painful ones. Immediate benefit cuts, massive tax increases, raising the retirement age significantly, or some combination of all three. But if action is taken now, while there's still time and money in the trust fund, the solutions become much more manageable. Small adjustments today prevent catastrophic cuts tomorrow. This isn't about politics. This isn't about which party you support. Every administration for the past 4 decades has failed to address this problem. Every Congress has failed to pass meaningful reform. The blame is bipartisan and universal. What's needed is pressure from the people who depend on Social Security. That means current retirees. That means workers approaching retirement. That means anyone who expects to collect benefits in their lifetime. Contact your representatives. Make it clear that Social Security reform is a priority. Make it clear that you're paying attention to the countdown. Make it clear that you expect action before the crisis hits, not after. 83 checks. That's the current timeline. The 2025 trustees report will be released in a few months, and those numbers may change. They could improve slightly. They could get worse. We'll cover that report as soon as it's released. But the fundamental reality isn't changing. The trust fund is depleting. Benefits will be cut if nothing is done. And so far, nothing has been done. Stay informed, stay engaged, and make sure your voice is heard before it's too late. If this information was valuable to you, subscribe to this channel for continued Social Security updates. Share this video with friends and family who rely on Social Security income. They need to know what's coming. I'll see you in the next update.